Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chacholonmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthatam Yena Bhutale Swaya Rupa Gatamaya Tadati Swapatantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sajagatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahika Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. Hey guys, Hare Krishna. It's me, the old school monk, and welcome back to another YouTube video. We're here in the Himalayan mountains, training our levels of prayer. If you didn't know, I was a Hare Krishna monk for the past 5 years, and I've made a couple of videos. You can go on the channel and check them out, but today we're going to be going through some of the questions that people asked, or some of the comments that people have made, and I'll kind of give some kind of spiritual perspective on them. So here's a comment from Hijack by Jack. He says that he's deeply interested in Eastern religious ideas for a long time, but he doesn't know where to start with investigating them. Can you please give suggestions on where to start? Well, it's a book that I've mentioned many times in all of the videos, and it's called the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. The Bhagavad Gita is a very kind of special book because it was spoken for the purpose of helping souls that are bewildered and struggling, like me most days. And the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita is very accessible and systematic, and there's a specific version of the Bhagavad Gita which I would highly recommend, and it's called Bhagavad Gita as it is. The reason why I'd recommend this specific version is because it's a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita according to a line of teachers that stretch all the way back to the time that the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So if you're not already familiar, the Bhagavad Gita is an ancient yoga scripture. It's over 5,000 years old, and it was spoken on a battlefield by Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's addressing Arjuna, who is a kind of righteous warrior that's become bewildered on the battlefield. And within the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam, which means that this knowledge is received in the line of disciplic succession. And Krishna says that over time the knowledge was lost, so that he came again to re-speak it. This wisdom has always existed within the fabric of space and time, but sometimes it's clear and available to the people in general, and sometimes it's covered. And all different spiritual paths and religions are touching on the knowledge which is spoken in Bhagavad Gita, like the Quran or the Bible or the Tao Te Ching. There's many books that you can read on spiritual wisdom, and the Bhagavad Gita contains all of that information. Plus there's information which is exclusive and exclusively spoken in the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is supposed to be received in this evam parampara praptam, in this line of disciples, like disciples and teachers. But you can gain access. You can get the Sanskrit text of the Bhagavad Gita yourself, and if you're a Sanskrit scholar, you can translate it to English yourself. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of versions of the Bhagavad Gita available out there. Some of them are translated by Oxford scholars who are expert in Sanskrit. Some of them are translated by philosophers who kind of they give their own interpretation, or they kind of expand their conceptions onto the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So really the best way to receive the knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita is with a blank slate. Okay, you accept, okay, I don't really know what's going on in the world, and I can theoretically at least accept that this book was spoken by God. Just theoretically accept that, and then by doing so, then naturally you are able to enter into the knowledge. And that's the mood that this Bhagavad Gita, as it is, like this specific translation, is given in that mood of, okay, I don't understand anything, but I surrender, and I'd like to learn. And it was translated by Prabhupada. It's translated by someone called A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's a bit of a mouthful of a name, but each of the names means a different thing, and each of the names is given to a personality. Like, for instance, in spiritual circles, changing of names is kind of a common thing, and it's not like in Runescape where you just pay a bond to change a name. Usually a name change comes as a result of achieving sort of a certain level. So even me, like when I was born, my name was Ben, but when I kind of committed to the spiritual path, then I got my name changed, or I got a new name given to me, and that name is Bhaktarupa Das, Bhaktarupa. And it comes from a verse that goes, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Svarupakam Bhaktavakataram Bhaktakam Namadi Namishakti. I can't even remember the verses from, but Bhaktarupa is a name for the golden monk who I've spoken about before. Bhakta means love or devotion, and Rupa means form. So my name is Bhaktarupa Das. But you can also call me Ben. I'm not super fanatical about it. But anyway, so A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, as I mentioned, he translated the Bhagavad Gita as he learnt it from his teacher, who learnt it from his teacher, who learnt it from his teacher, who learnt it from his teacher. And so in that way, the knowledge is kind of shepherded down from generation to generation, and it protects the essence. Here's another one. Okay, so we've got a comment from Taxes are theft. He's not wrong there. I don't know if we're talking about the Grand Exchange tax or the government taxes. He asks, what's your take on sadhus in India? And for those who may be unaware of like India and spirituality and what the heck is a sadhu, if you watched the last video, we were talking about sadhana, meaning the method by which we attain a goal, which is your sadhya, and a sadhu is a person who practices that method. And traditionally, sadhus would be personalities that would kind of engage in spiritual meditation and practice, and sort of split off from society, and they'd live just on whatever was provided to them by the universe. So maybe they'd have a little begging bowl, and persons would come and give them a little bit of rice, or a little glass of milk, or whatever it is, and the sadhu would subsist on that, you know. But I think one thing is that in modern India, sadhus are not very respected, and that's because there's certain personalities that have kind of taken on these sadhu clothes just because they're lazy. They're not necessarily interested in cultivating spiritual wisdom, but instead they just want to kind of step out from society. It's not always the case that sadhus are kind of like waste men that are just here kind of rinsing people and begging without any cause. I wanted to talk about when I went to India myself. I think over a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, I went to India, and I went to this amazing mystical city called Vrindavan. If you're ever in India, look up Vrindavan. It's a few hours like south of New Delhi, and it's the city of temples. Like every single building practically is a temple, and they're filled with these beautiful like deities where people go there and they worship the deity, which is like the form of Krishna or the form of the Lord, and they offer them beautiful clothing and incense and flowers, and they cook lovely food, vegetarian food, and offer it to the deity. And it's really just a very deep, rich, ancient kind of mystical city. All of the buildings are so old, and the people there are very almost like very like godly personalities, in the sense that they're extremely simple, and the whole purpose of their life is to love and to serve. So you walk around Vrindavan, and there's many different types of sadhus, and it's like very interesting, because obviously you're some big kind of like Western monk, like I'm some big white, I used to play rugby, like a white rugby player wearing some orange robes and a shaved head, and you're kind of walking around this ancient city with a rich culture and a rich history. And I've just been studying the kind of scriptures for 4 or 5 years, so I'm kind of a rookie in one sense, even though like in the West I'd be considered like, oh wow, you're a monk and you spent like your whole time for the past 4 years as a monk. In Vrindavan, I'm nobody, a very insignificant person. But I remember when I was walking through Vrindavan, there was this sadhu on the side of the road, and he had like these shimmering, like glistening eyes, and a very broad smile. And he said to me, "Hey, excuse me, Prabhu, do you have any money that you could help me with?" And I had like I had some money. I had some rupees in my my little bag. Maybe like $10 or £5 worth of money. And I was like, but I didn't want to give him any money, because like I guess in the UK, if you give money to a beggar, more often than not they're gonna spend it on drugs or alcohol or something like that. So kind of the mentality, the automatic conditioning that I have is, if someone asks me for money on the street, I just say, sorry, I haven't got any money, without thinking about it. So like to this sadhu, he said, excuse me, Prabhu, have you got any money? And he looked at me like he was very present. Behind those eyes was a soul looking at me, shimmering eyes. And he said, have you got any money? And I just like the instinct, like I spoke about, I was just like, oh sorry, I haven't got any money. And he looked at me and he just said, are you sure? And it was like I got this very deep impression that he knew that I had money, like in the sense of like he knew that I had told a little porcupine a little lie, a little fib, and he was like, are you sure? And he smiled. And bear in mind the context of this was so I had decided to kind of split off from the group of monks that I was traveling with, and just kind of I wandered off into Vrindavan, into this kind of city of mysterious temples, and like it's all like alleyways and little corridors and little kind of arches, and very like extremely mystical place. And I was kind of just off there on my own, and it was dark, and there was like this kind of fog in the air, the smell of incense, the sound of sort of kirtan, which is like musical mantras. Like these temples were singing, like sometimes you go outside a mosque and you hear this Quran being sung, and it's very beautiful and very mystical. So I'm like here in this temple city, and I said, no, I haven't got any money. And he said, are you sure? Like eyes glistening. And I just was like, oh damn, he knows. But I carried on walking, and I visited this temple, and I met some more interesting people, and but I didn't see the sadhu again, I totally forgot about that experience, and And then maybe 2 weeks passed, 2 more weeks passed, and I was there a different time then. I was going down the same street but at a different time, and I was with the big group of monks that I was with, traveling with from Wales, and the same sadhu was there, and he looked at me and he said, "Do you still not have any money?" And it was like he remembered me. Like, this was 2 weeks ago on a random evening, hundreds of people walked past him, but he was like, it was almost as if no time had passed for him. He's like, "Are you sure you still don't have any money?" And I was like, oh my God, this guy remembers. Like, this guy's got some mystical potency that he remembers people. So we went up to another temple, and I think I got like I took all of the money that I had, and on the way back I just gave it to him and said, "There you go, here's your money." And then I said, "I apologize for telling a lie to you," and he just laughed, and I kind of made a friend in that sadhu. So it's just that I wanted to share that story because it was quite a almost like a mystical experience. And the question is, what's your take on the sadhus of India? And I guess my take is some of them are bogus, some of them are just cheating people, but there are a rare few that are highly spiritually adept personalities that have kind of renounced material life properly and fully, and they have certain mystic powers. Or maybe that guy was just a really good scammer. He's just blessed with a good memory and he's good at scamming us naive Western. But either way, it was very happy experience to give all my money to the sadhu. So hopefully you guys are kind of enjoying me going through a couple of the comments. This video is just going to be a bit more chilled, and if you don't like it, you can just cross off. It's just something for you to have on in the background while you're playing a little bit of the Runescape. And it also is like helping me to get through these bones that I'm grinding, because it's taken quite a long time to prepare for 99 prayer. So for like 10 days, it's been 10 days now since I got my membership, and I haven't even started training prayer yet. I've just been casually grinding these bones, or chiseling the bones, but it's quite a straightforward activity. But yeah, we've got this question from Machka. It says, "You, me, we, everything are an illusion, Maya or the matrix, and yet it is real for our perception and our experience of it. How does it all work, and why? And will we never really know?" So if you're a bit confused or bamboozled about that comment, in the last video we entered this kind of discussion, talking about how kind of Runescape is almost like a false world in comparison to the real world. It's like a kind of like the Matrix. It's like a world that exists within the real world. And then I presented the idea that the kind of Vedic conception, the Vedic idea, is that even the real world, or we quote unquote the real world, as in the world that we live in and interact with through our bodies, that world is also illusory. It's not true. It's temporary, so therefore it's false. And Machka is asking, which is quite natural, it's like, okay, if this world is real, even though it seems real for our perception, how does that work? How do we know what's real? Where's the substance of reality, And I guess one way that I would respond to such a question is that I guess it might be a wrong way to say it, that this world is not real, because it is very real, but reality is in the Sanskrit text, it teaches that reality is Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means filled with knowledge, and Ananda means blissful. So this is the kind of these are the constituents that make up the spiritual reality. So like maybe in the kind of Judeo-Christian perspective, the spiritual reality could be referred to as heaven, or the spiritual realm, or the place beyond this world of birth and death. And So the constituents are that world is eternal, everyone there is full of knowledge, and everyone is completely and utterly joyful and blissful. Whereas this world that we live in, it's illusory. And the reason it is because it's not sat, it's asat. It means it's temporary. So if you think about everything in the room around you right now, you can look at the wall, or you can even look at the computer screen, or look down at your hands. These like material kind of objects are made up of the material elements, and those elements are constantly in flux. Like all of the different elements that make up your body, they made up another form prior to your body existing. So for instance, every time you take a meal, every time you eat some food, that food, part of it at least, gets processed and it becomes part of your body. So the elements that came from the water falling from the clouds and the earth coming from the ground, all of the different aspects that go into the food that we make, those elements have been reshaped into, say, like some grains, and then those grains have been reformed into like some bread, and then you eat the bread and the bread becomes reformed into part of your body, and you also evacuate part of it down the toilet. Poopy poop. But as I was saying, these material elements that make up the world around us are constantly in flux. They're constantly moving. And in that sense, they're asat. The forms that we see around us are non-eternal. They're temporary forms. Now, thinking philosophically, the actual elements that everything are made of, they're eternal. They're part of something that's called the pradhan. Pradhan means the ingredients that go into a universe. Like if you're into science, you may be aware of something called multiverse theory. So the conception that our universe is just one self-contained universe, part of an ocean of unlimited universes. And that actually lines up with the Vedic version. You have the idea of Mahavishnu, and how from the pores of his body come unlimited universes. They're like a universal egg. That's what they call it, the universal egg. And within the egg of a universe is a substance called pradhan, which means material potential. So it's all of the different elements within a universe in a very like raw form. So within that universal egg is the potential for a universe. And then Vishnu, Mahavishnu, he injects each universe with living entities, and those living entities are what causes the universe to start moving and to start sort of generating, and thus the river of names, or the temporary material manifestations spring. They grow, they exist for some time, and then they dwindle, just like our body is born, exists for some time, maybe produces some byproducts, some children, and then it disappears. So this is like the nature of the matrix, or the material worlds, the material universes, is that they're temporary. But they are real, and that's the point. They're real, but our perception of reality is sometimes not correct, because we're seeing something that is temporary as eternal. Like we take our current position and we act as if we're going to live forever, but actually we're not going to live forever. And even you yourself are different than you were 5 years ago. Let's go back to Runescape. Our game is constantly updating. Like right now I'm training prayer on Valamor. Valamor didn't exist before, but it was there in a potential form, in the sense that the game engine was able to support such a world to be created. It was potential for Valamor to exist, but it took a living entity, or a team of living entities. In other words, it took the game developers to get together, put their ideas together, and they formed this potential that existed within the engine, and they formed it into this kind of quite aesthetic and interesting new region of the game. So the same thing's happening all around us. There's cities being built, there's sort of new styles developing and emerging, there's new music coming out. Everything that's changing and growing is always pushed by a living entity, by a personality. There's nothing around us that has been formed by something that wasn't personal, you know? Like a brick, it has to be made. You take the raw element, but you have to apply a process. So everything around us is made by a person. And also a Vedic conception, which is very revolutionary, is that personal maintenance and development, it extends all the way up to the creator of the entire reality. Like the source of reality is also a person, you know, because, you know, in the Bible it says that we are made in God's image, and that's the idea, is that we're small parts and parcels of God. We're small spiritual entities that come from the source. And it's similar of like you have a vast ocean. You take one drop of water out of the ocean and it contains the same substance as the ocean itself. So it's wet, it's salty, you know? So it's the same thing. We're tiny creators. Matrix, Maya, illusion, what's real, what's not real. But I guess the point I'm trying to sort of make is that anything that is temporary, that is part of the matrix, or that is part of the illusory world. But anything that is eternal is not. And the constant throughout all the changes, your body's changed since you were a child. You had a small little baby body, and it grew, and it changed, and your mind changed, and these different aspects of you changed. But you, the witness, you, the person that watched those changes, you, the person that's experienced throughout, you're the same observer, you're the same particle of consciousness that exists. And so, therefore, you yourself are not an illusion, but the world that we live in is illusory. And it's quite funny, because on the last comment I said to write, I actually said, if you want to write in the comments, you're in illusion. But I guess because of my accent, it sounded like you're an illusion. You're an illusion. You're in illusion. You're an illusion. So everyone in the comments wrote you're an illusion, but I that's actually like not even correct. You're in illusion. You're not an illusion. So in this video, if you want to write you're in illusion, it would be more correct according to the Vedic version. Anyway, and also guys, I don't know if you're happy with me actually speaking more, getting more into this philosophy, then please let me know in the comments. I want to keep a good balance in these videos of like, okay, we want some character progression in our Runescape character, but at the same time, I know that there's a lot of you from the comments that I've been receiving that are just interested in hearing some of this philosophical knowledge and wisdom, because it's interesting to our intellect, you know. And yeah, I'm happy to sort of just give you some food for thought, and I'm sure some of it may be challenging, some of it may be triggering, but that's cool. If you're triggered, you always have to ask why. Okay, so we have a nice comment here from Cade Maid, and he said, I love the narrative of your character making a pilgrimage to Varlamore. Yeah, I like this. This is I think there's something about this account and the way that things are panning out that is quite exciting to me. It's like almost like my character is on a kind of spiritual journey or a spiritual quest, and he's trying to figure out things, you know. Like for instance, I trained my combat melee stats in the free-to-play world, and one of the ways or the training methods that I used was I killed flesh crawlers. Like if you check out the video that I made before, I can link it in the description. I was killing flesh crawlers, and one of the aspects of killing flesh crawlers is that they drop these bottom scepter pieces, which are like little shards of bone. And it's funny because I did hours and hours and hours of collecting these bone shards and chiseling them down, and the prayer method that I happen to be doing is using a chisel with blessed bones. So it's like almost like my character was training for this prayer method the whole time. Like he was he was learning how to chisel the bones when he was up in the ready for when he went to the Himalayan mountains to do the real thing, you know. And yeah, there's quite a few aspects of the character which are quite exciting from a role-playing perspective. Even the fact that now we just only wear monks' robes, I think is quite funny. Which actually leads me into this next comment from 123Dan24. He says, "Thanks for another video, and I hope the hair comes off in the next video." So maybe we can go and shave our hair now in game. Okay, I just quickly changed the view to fixed. Okay, so we're in Fali. Oh, let's go do a mime show while we're doing it. Yay, mime gloves. So yeah, let's do this. It's interesting. We'll start off by shaving. I think we're going to start off by shaving the beard. Okay. Goodbye, beard. Oh, he's left. He's back. I found it quite funny that so at some point, at some time, Runescape decided to implement the Hare Krishna haircut, which is literally this. Like, the Hare Krishnas all have a sika. We call it a sika. I could put a picture up now. I've got a sika in real life, you know, and it's kind of like a tuft of hair. It wouldn't be this big, but there's a tuft of hair on the back of the head, and I've heard it described that it's like a flag of compassion. So the reason we keep this little tuft is to kind of identify ourselves as compassionate persons. And then there's also something interesting, because if you're familiar with like chakras and like this subtle body, our subtle body has different points of energy, which are called chakras, which the life airs move throughout. We keep this little tuft of hair on our crown chakra. But yeah, actually, I'm pretty into that. That looks cool. So my character is kind of now becoming a monk. He spent so long in free-to-play, training his combat skills and training how to chisel bones, that now he's gone to the Himalayan mountains. He's finally shaved his hair up to start training. So I'm very aware that like our time is limited, and I know that this video has been quite long. If you've listened this long, then just tell me you got to the end, and send me a little note. Like, was the video length too long? Maybe these questions and answers would be better suited to be done on a live stream, where we can have a little bit more of a back and forth dialogue to kind of get to the bottom of certain ideas. I'm kind of cautious. I wonder how many people are actually interested in the philosophical aspects of the things that I'm saying, or if it's just if you're more into like the Runescape, exclusively me talking about Runescape. But thank you so kindly for coming to the end of the video, and I hope to see you in the next video very soon. Hare Krishna.